So, you want to open up your first retail store, you're wondering how much it costs, you're wondering how much space you can afford, you're wondering how much you should put into this business, and how long it's going to take to get your investment back. These are the exact same questions I had about 5 years ago before starting my store, and I think it'll be helpful to make this video. Thanks for coming back, guys. I really appreciate it. Let's get into this video. To give you a quick idea, my space is located in Ontario, Canada. We set up about 5 years ago. Things were much cheaper back then, I would say, on almost everything. All your services were cheaper, all your equipment was cheaper, all your inventory was cheaper, by at least 20 to 30%, depending on what. So these figures are from 5 years ago. Keep that in mind. And I don't have a hood for the kitchen, which is very expensive. Giving you an example of our prep area is just stainless steel tables, an over wrapper, a portable deep fryer, portable commercial small oven just to do cookies and small baked goods. We don't do a lot of cooking. It's more prepped cold foods, sandwiches, small desserts, things like that. We do have a 3-compartment sink. Everything else I'm going to show you right now, I'll break down step by step how much it costs to open up a store this size in Canada. It'll be relative in Canada and the US. Other parts of the world may differ a little bit, but this will give you an idea where we're at, and then you can convert the money into your currency and see exactly where we stand. Alright, so we're going to start with the largest expense. This one came by surprise. This was my first business. I had no idea this would cost this much. But the electrical, we had to service this whole space ourselves. We put all the electrical in, all the lighting, all the outlets, anything that needed to be connected, to special outlets needed to be done. New panels, service to our own meter, all our LED lights, anything connected to handicap accessible doors, fire exit lighting, all of that stuff, emergency lighting. Everything came to about $25,000. This was not the cheapest. This was not the most expensive. We got our 3 quotes. I recommend getting 3 quotes for any service or contracting job you need for anything related to your business. This option is not always the best option. You want to actually see the contractor and connect with them, trust them, see exactly what they're going to do. Everything will be done according to your engineering plans that have been set up. That's a whole nother expense. But you don't want to go with the cheapest option, only because you usually get what you pay for. I went with someone right in the middle. They were recommended by my landlord, who we also have a very good reputation with. So that's something to keep in mind. The cheapest is not always the best. If at any point you like this video, please hit the like button. It really helps our channel grow and support this small business. If you haven't noticed, we have our very own coffee line. I'm going to grab that for you. That we serve every day in store. If you'd like to try it and support the channel, you can go to 13grandcoffee.com. This is our very own roast. Probably the best coffee in the world. If you ever want to try it, hit the link in the description, and you will be taken to our very own site where we retail this coffee. And just to point out, this is not what this store started with. 90% of what you see has been added over the last 5 years. It's a long, patient growing process to get to this level, and there's still so much work to do. We're still a very humble small business, but just to know that we started with a few tables, a few shelves, and probably not even half of the products you see in our store. We definitely didn't start with our own coffee line, that's for sure. But everyone wants to start at the top. No one wants to start here at the bottom. And that's the difference between someone who's willing to put in the work to get there and unfortunately most people quit before they get to that point. And I don't want to forget this very big expense, our walk-in cooler. This was about $10,000. That's with our, condenser fans, our roof unit. This was actually one of the coolers of the old grocery store, so I didn't have to do too much. We got a little bit of shelving, which you can't see here, but basically it's a lot of skids with stacked up produce boxes, a little bit of dairy, some desserts. You definitely need one of these if you're going to run a store. You need storage. You can't keep running around picking things up. It will never work out like that. So our third biggest expense was the heating and cooling of the place. The ductwork, the air conditioning unit, and setting up all of our vents to make sure everyone's nice and toasty in the winter and nice and cold in the summer, especially for the produce that needs to be always chilled. We had someone who knew what they're doing. So this expense was about $7,500. Again, I didn't use the cheapest nor the most expensive. I certainly went up in price by now. So I mentioned you will need your engineering plans certified and stamped from the city. This requires hiring an engineer that knows your building or is familiar with the surrounding area. So our engineer that the whole building ended up using was about $6,000 to get the plans, the architectural layout, everything set up, the way we wanted it to, everything up to city codes, and it all had to make sense with each of our contractors. So just for that was about $6,000. They usually come in some sort of, large roll that nobody really looks at after you open, unless you're doing some huge renovations. Yeah, the city had to stamp and approve that before we could do anything. And yeah, that's another expense that you wouldn't know unless you had to renovate your house or a business. So, to give you a quick rundown here, there was nothing in this entire building before we started. It was an old grocery store about 25 years before we even came to look at the space. It sat empty for a very long time. The landlord decided to divide the unit up into a few different spots, and then we took about 1,600 square feet. We ended up having to do all the work in the building for a very reduced rental rate. There are two ways of doing a lease agreement. You could ask the landlord to build to suit, your rent will be higher, or you can custom fit and get your own contractors and pay out of pocket, and your rent would be lower. So you choose how you want to do that. We had no option. The landlord was not interested in building to suit for anybody, so we had to do it this way. And it did work out in the long run. This is our improvements that we invested in. Eventually, when we want to sell the space, that's one thing we can list that we did to the space. We invested our money into it. There's not too many grocery stores set up just like this. You get to do things the way you want, and then when you go to sell the business, that's one thing that you list as a leasehold improvement that you spent your money on to make a more an attractive sale to the buyer. No, that doesn't mean that I own these leasehold improvements. They do become the landlord's property. So you really have to give and take on where you're going with this business. Like, if you can buy your own property, that's probably the best. You own all the improvements you make to it. If you can't afford that route, which most people, when just starting out can't, then you have to do your own improvements, and hopefully they pay you back time and time again over the years of your business. And eventually you can also sell that business for, a way better investment that you put in at the start. So next was our starting inventory. We spent a total of $6,000 on our starting inventory, and that may seem like a lot, but it really didn't fill up the store at all. So we were at a point where we had to start spreading things out, making things look full, putting shelves in weird spots that had the same things on certain items. You have to make the place look full, and $6,000 didn't cut it at all. So to be honest, the place looked very empty, the place looked very scarce. That's all we could afford at the time. There's a lot of people that probably still haven't come back from that grand opening day because they figure, this store really doesn't have much, it's not worth my time. But over time, others came back, others, started realizing we had more and more inventory. It was worth coming to the store, and that's where we slowly had our progress over the last 5 years. So our tiles, they give the store a look like it's a little bit more high-end, and the truth is our prices are a little higher, so we want to give it that feel that's a little bit more, you know, fancy, high-end. And we went with a more expensive tile, and we had someone we know lay them. Came to about $6,000. Now we only laid about 1,400 square feet. The back room and the coolers are obviously not tiled, so that was a good deal. We had to help a little bit, of course. When you work with family or friends, you have to help them, you know, get them, you know, the tiles, give them a pack of smokes, get them a beer, get them an espresso. So, you know, you do the heavy lifting, they do the expertise, and you save a little money. You get screamed at, but that's all in good fun. It's part of business, I guess. So, and also the manual labor we did was we painted our walls. We had someone else spray the ceiling. As you can see, it's all like that black matte color. It was a really old rusty wooden look before. We also sprayed our ductwork. That was a kind of a silverish, you know, with all the caulking connecting it together. So we sprayed it all a nice black. It was the best option rather than installing a ceiling. That came to about $4,000 with the walls, the ceiling, the paint, the labor, everything in. That was about $4,000. We also painted our back rooms a nice white color, and the office was a brown. So yeah, it gave the place a look that you don't find when you walk in to most stores. Most stores are going to be white, you know, with the LED lights. They look like there's liquidation worlds or the dentist offices that you might find everywhere. The classroom look. We didn't do that. We wanted to be a lot different, so we did like a nice dark red. Whether it was the best choice, maybe not, because the place can look dark certain days. However, we went with it. It's been doing okay for us, and we're happy with it. Our shelving was something I almost forgot as well. The shelving that you see is not what we started with. We started with basically just the wooden bunks. Those came to $2,500. We did get a total of 6 of them, and those were all custom made to our, you know, own kind of perspective on what we wanted in the store. We needed it to hold produce, and we wanted to feature, you know, like items, theme items right on top. So you'll see with any produce we have in the store, you know, there'll be something like kind of similar to it or goes well with it. Like, you know, with our tomatoes, you'll find we put like charcuterie items or tomato sauces or crackers or pasta near them, so people can kind of pick and choose a few more things than just 2 tomatoes. They may pick up a few more things. Our signage outside was very, very humble when we started. We didn't have much left in our budget, and the sign is so important. It's your first impression. It was a big circular piece of plastic with our logo on it, and that was it. Like I said, we started with very, very minimal. It did the job for 3 years. We obviously upgraded it now. Everything was reinvested into this business. So that was totaled at about $1,000 for the installation and the creation of it, and the material, everything in was about $1,000. Probably now realizing that now that was a little high, but we were running out of time to open. We needed a sign, and yeah, that did the job for a little while. So obviously our lease agreement was a very important one. Our first and last month's rent were due before we even opened the doors. That was about $6,000. You know, you really can't have a space without a lease, so make sure you account for that expense as well. And last but not least, all of our miscellaneous charges, our permit fees, our lawyer fees, accounting fees to get started, opening business accounts for you know, different things, office supplies, our till system, all of that I estimated around $4,000. It may be higher, it may be a little lower, but that's around $4,000. And you know, that might include anything from, you know, our floor mats to our POS system. There's so many little things that add up before you open. You want to account for at least another $4,000 to $5,000 right there. I'm looking at knives that I started with, you know, the wall magnet that I started with, little shelves to hold things. those things add up quick. So yeah, 4,000 to 5,000 miscellaneous. All in all, my friends, we spent about $80,000 to open this store. It may be a little higher nowadays. We used our personal savings. We used a business loan with a good interest rate. Now the interest rates are much higher. Everything is much more difficult. You don't have the same buying power you used to have many years ago. So just be careful with your spending. Start small if you can. I'm telling you, it's a big investment. It's a big risk. Even at the size of this store, you get locked into long leases. You spend a lot of your own personal money. So just be aware, it can be a great success. You can be crazy profitable in 1 year, or you can go bankrupt. You just never know in business. That's why I always say do your research, watch channels like these, talk to people in the industries, work in the industries before you spend this type of money on something that you're not 100% certain on. Have a great day, guys. Thanks for watching this video.